It's funny. I had not read the novel beforehand, and I was just saying this recently on previous interviews where I'm like, yeah, I haven't read a lot of Stephen King, but the reality is I've read like 4 or 5 books. It's just he's so prolific that in hindsight, that feels like such a small sampling of his catalog. If I read 4 or 5 books of any other author, I'd be like, oh, I mean, I've read like I love that author. It's like, but yeah, his stuff is so timeless. Especially, it's cool to be able to be a part of this project because he cited it as one of his favorites and an early book in his catalog. And it's funny now because it's a period piece, but it was actually contemporary at the time. It takes place in the 70s. And in this movie, we're revisiting the era in which it was actually written. I'm so glad they didn't modernize it because it has this amazing nostalgia feel and it fits the mood so well.
It does. I loved what I saw it yesterday morning, and it was very nostalgic. That's a great word for
Yeah.
it. How does it feel to star in a film that's now part of like Stephen King's like lore, like alongside like you've got Green Mile, it's
Yeah.
there's a lot.
So You could go on and on forever, right? Yeah, it's really great. It's awesome to have his blessing. I mean, I know that Steven likes the movie, and it's a bummer we never got to meet him, which Steven, if you're listening, come on. He lives in Maine, like he can make it down to Massachusetts. No, I'm such an admirer of the man, and so it's yeah, it was really great to be a part of this book, especially a book that he loves so much.
Right, and you have a lot of films with Bill Camp, and it looked like you two had a lot of fun on screen. What was he like to work with?
Bill is the man. Yeah, he's so wonderful. It was fun. He's classically trained and went to Juilliard, and it was really fun for me, Lewis and Makenzie and I are sort of contemporaries, um, and have done far less stage work than Bill. And we were always just so impressed by how strong his voice is and how much it carries. And we just felt I personally felt like such a hack for the being like I have this like little sort of like stage voice, and Bill just comes out booming. And so yeah, it was fun to sort of pick his brain. And he's a wonderful actor and an awesome guy. So yeah, it was really great working with him.
Amazing. And what was it like seeing yourself transform into a vampire? Was it different to what you had on set to how it was in the finished film?
It's funny. I can like I do my best to sort of like detach myself from I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you almost have this like selective memory where it's like it doesn't when you watch, you just like you kind of just you make a movie and you let go. So it was sort of a trip for me to come back and watch and go back and remember, some of the processes that I was going through. But you hit the nail on the head with that for me, that was the most interesting part about my character. And I think really the purpose of the character just sort of show this transition. You get to meet Mike Ryerson, prior as a human, at the funeral, and you get a little sense of his vibe. But then the most interesting part is you get to see him when he's not human and not a vampire, and he knows something's coming, and this sense of dread and the fear of the unknown. And that was the thing that was most fun to play with for me. Yeah, the vampire stuff's super fun, and to get to be a monster. And just like kind of pure unadulterated playtime when you get to do that stuff and you have the teeth on and the makeup. But as an actor, the most interesting part was to get to sort of play the in between and to
Yeah.
mess with that.
And I guess finally, I would love to know if there was some kind of group training, like vampire training, or if there was like a specific direction on how that you would all move or act.
Yeah, that's a great question. Alexander Ward, who plays Barlow, the monster, he's sort of an expert in playing monsters and movement. And in addition to playing Barlow, he was on set for all the vampire stuff, sort of working with Gary to sort of create the aesthetic of the vampire and how they move and how they act. So yes, it was definitely a very like concerted thing. We weren't just all sitting there on our own. But of course, you get on set and things change and we adapt. And I got to film the some of my vampire stuff like very early on. And it was cool to watch, Gary and Alex sort of shape how the vampires move and act. And, we would try stuff, and because it was so early on in the shooting with me, where they'd be like, okay, now try this. And I kind of got to be like their Play-Doh early on to sort of like figure out where things were moving with the vampire. And that was a really fun process to be a part of. And I really like that, some actors are like kind of want to just like do their own thing. And I love sort of the collaborative effect of like, yeah, give me more, give me notes, like give me things to play with. And you don't always get that timing wise, especially with TV so fast. But early on, especially early in the shooting, we got to play a little bit more and try different things, and that was a process that I was really grateful, glad I could be a part of.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey